Hey YouTube! So today we're going to take on a topic which we've really been avoiding for a very long time, but since we have personally been drawn into it recently, as you guys know, there's a soldier by the name of Bradley Manning who currently this week is actually having his trial on what he did. Basically, I'm going to let Bryan talk to you about who Bradley Manning is and what he's accused of doing. But before we start that, as you guys know, we're Grand Marshals at this year's parade in San Francisco. Now, San Francisco originally had made Bradley Manning a Grand Marshal, and then the board of Pride decided that they did not want Bradley Manning to represent the parade or gay pride, and they pulled the nomination. So there's been a huge amount of controversy and uproar here in San Francisco around Pride, and the gay community is pretty evenly split when it comes to Bradley Manning. Now, we have somehow got put in the middle of that, because we are Grand Marshals and we are getting a lot of threats and a lot of really nasty comments and a lot of really mean people saying really nasty things about us. Real quick example, this is one of many. You pathetic fags only care about marriage. You are just heteronormative, I don't even know what that is. Paradigms. Use your voice and fight for real bigger issues. So I have been pretty much telling these people to suck it all week long because I think that they are doing Bradley Manning a disservice. You know, and they are not his voice, and they are not supporting him appropriately. I personally, when it comes to Pride, before we get into the whole Bradley Manning thing, think that he was a bad choice for Grand Marshal. I think maybe someday down the future he may be a good choice, but for them to initially pick him as a Grand Marshal is a bad choice. Once he was picked, though, I think that the Pride Board Committee should have left him as a Grand Marshal, because I don't think that you give an honor and then you take it away because of peer pressure. I think, if anything, that defeats the honor in itself for everybody. That being said, as you guys know, me and Bryan and the kids have worked really hard for marriage equality, and we've taken it as a real honor to be able to, especially in this week when marriage, Prop 8 may be overturned, to be a part of the Gay Pride Parade. And we are looking forward to spending some quality time with our family, our friends, and our supporters on Pride, and we are not dropping out because of the whole Bradley Manning controversy. So if you have some nasty emails to send me, I'm just going to throw them over here in my garbage can, and you can suck it. Okay, now on to who Bradley Manning is. Take it away.
So it's been a long time, and I had to kind of refresh myself, and I know mistakes will be made. But for those of you who may not live in the U.S. or don't remember the story yourselves, Bradley Manning was a private who was stationed in Afghanistan as an information analyst and had access to a lot of very sensitive classified information, both at the military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, and diplomatic cables that had been passing back and forth through that station. And he saw some really bad things that were happening.
Some illegal things.
Yeah. And he chose to bring those things to light, and he gave them to WikiLeaks, who posted them to the world, and it caused a lot of problems for the United States government. Now, leading up to that point, Bradley Manning's history is one of being kind of a troubled teen, somebody who was bullied a whole lot, who had nothing but a string of problems all the way up to when he finally joined the military, where that didn't end once he got in the military. He continued to be bullied and have problems in the military to the point where they very nearly kicked him out. But instead of kicking him out...
So for people who don't know Bradley Manning, he is a gay man. He's a gay man living in the time of the military when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was legal, right, and which causes a whole bunch of problems. Okay.
And I guess because he was a small guy, he's like 5'1", and really small, he was just an easy target for bullying, and he was really just about to get kicked out. He got put in the discharge unit, and then all of a sudden they decided, well, no, we really need everybody we have. Mm-hmm. And so they took this guy who was on the verge of mental breakdown already and put him in charge of really sensitive information in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And he leaked the information to WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So America got mud on its face, and they got really pissed off. And they basically, the group WikiLeaks has been, basically releasing information that is criminal. I mean, the government is committing criminal acts overseas, and we have a constitution in this country, we're a democracy, and we have certain standards, like the whole torture thing, that we supposedly as Americans believe in, that we think is wrong. And somebody like Bradley Manning was a whistleblower, and he basically took the American secrets, and he basically gave them to the world to see. Now, we are split on that, because we know that when it comes down to Bradley Manning and what he did, most people in this country are torn. There's the people who think that he's a traitor to America, and there are people that think he's a freedom fighter and a hero. And I'm somewhere in between. I personally think that Bradley Manning was a very sick person. I mean, he has a lot of mental health issues, and he was not being treated. And I think that he was put in a really bad situation around really important documents, and he made a moral decision for himself that this information was important to get out. Now, I, as Bryan knows, am that type of personality. Not that I'm mentally sick. Well, some people say I'm not mentally sick. But if I see an injustice or I see that something's being done illegally, I tend to be the type of personality who's going to point my finger and scream, "Bad!" and tell.
Yeah.
So I am not the type of person who sits back and allows legal, moral acts to happen in front of me, even if I have to take some type of a personal loss. And I believe that Bradley Manning had good intentions, and I think that what he did was right. In a democracy, we as a democracy, we need these kinds of people. We need people to step up and tell us when our government is acting illegally and immorally. Because we as Americans have a right to elect our government. And we have a right to basically, put the people in power who will represent our values. So I don't necessarily think that Bradley Manning, what he did was wrong. That being said, we live in a country of laws, and there are consequences for actions. And the reason why Bradley Manning is a hero is because he knew the consequences to his actions, and he acted anyways. So that is where I'm torn. Because if you're going to commit a certain crime, and there's consequences for that crime, then, you kind of have to live with the consequences. Now, is Bradley Manning going to spend most of his life in prison? Probably. Until some president down the road decides that what he did was right, and our country has evolved, which I don't see it happening. It seems like we're becoming a country more and more passing or doing things that are illegal for the greater good, giving away our personal liberties and allowing the government to listen to our phone calls, our internet connection, and eavesdrop on us, as you can see with the latest controversy that's coming out, that we've allowed the government to basically take away our freedoms. We, as Americans, have allowed that. So somebody like Bradley Manning, who is actually stepping up and using his voice to make change and hopefully knock the greater good in the head, I salute that. As an ex-soldier, I salute his ability to have that courage to do it. My only problem with it is I think Bradley Manning was used. I think he was used by WikiLeaks, and I think he was used by the government. And I think that he's still being used. And he's being used by people who want to use his voice as a way to attack the government, attack people like us who care about things like marriage equality, and that's a negative. And I think that those people need to put their energy behind, maybe bringing out the controversy that really happened here. Like, why is the government doing these things? Instead of spending all their energy attacking people who may agree with them. Sorry, I get winded.
Yeah, well, this is one of those topics that really gets people fired up because you don't find anybody who's standing in the middle. There's usually people who really think this guy's the devil and deserves to rot in prison for the rest of his life. Some of those people who express that opinion are people that are really close friends to me. And when I hear them say that, I'm like, really? And then there are the people like these guys who support Bradley Manning.
No matter what.
Who are using him now to attack other gay people who may even believe the same thing they believe. Yeah. So, it's almost like he's stopped being a person now and it has become a cause. So we need to address maybe why we're having this discussion, and why Bradley Manning is so polarizing to people and what it is we want from our government. Because when you see the things he released, whether or not you believe those put soldiers in harm's way, would you want to know those things?
And they probably did. If you think about it, what he did was he released sensitive information about people around the world. Now, has the government proven that anybody lost their lives because of the information he released? No, they haven't proven that. So if there's real examples of people who died because of the information he released, then Bradley needs to be held accountable for that.
But the thing is, people were dying. That video of the helicopter attack where civilians were just being mowed down, one of them a van full of children, or the cables about how the Iraqi government was using U.S. intelligence agents to go around and round up their political rivals and have them killed. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of things I would want to know my government is doing.
Yeah, and our government is doing those kind of things. And it's important as Americans that we understand that. Mm-hmm. And that we hold people like Obama, who we support as our president, accountable for tapping our phones and allowing these laws to be passed and the government to do these things. It's important that we educate ourselves and that we know what's happening in our own government so we can stop those things from happening. And that's why whistleblowers are so important. And I salute Bradley Manning for doing what he did. But, you know, he obviously has to go through the trial. He has to deal with the consequences of the actions. And, you know, us as individuals don't have much of a voice when it comes to making a change in his destiny. I mean, I think that we can do things like force the government to be more clear and open with us. But when it comes to somebody like Bradley Manning, I mean, it really is in the courts now. And the courts, as you guys know, don't necessarily go with public opinion. I mean,
yeah, and to me, I mean, this is all still the rippling extensions of the war on terror, which has become, you know, not so much about terrorists anymore, but becoming far broader. They're tapping American phone lines and, you know, going to Facebook to find information about us. We're giving away more freedoms that have absolutely nothing to do with terrorism at all.
I forget the president who said it, but there was a president who once said that people who are willing to give away I'll forget it. I murdered it. I'll find it and put it down below. But it's a really cool statement about giving away your privacy and your freedoms for security. And when you do that, you don't deserve the freedoms in the first place.
But part of being an American, people, is that we can have a conversation like this and it doesn't turn into you're not American because you believe different than me. Yeah. So for the people who probably are really angry at us for opinion right now, let's remember that we can all be adults and have this conversation without it being you're an evil person for feeling that way.
So, whether you support Bradley Manning or not, come out to Pride and say hi to us. Until next time, you two, bye.
And I believe that our love found its way through the current as the waves